Film Lab, and it will zero it out, and your casting notice is free, and we definitely want you to use this. So please feel free to write it down. I'm also going to give out my email address later, and you can always email me if you have any questions about anything or if you forget the code.
Does that code have an expiration on it?
No.
Oh.
So, yeah. We want to make it easy for you guys to cast.
Is that a one-time?
No, you can use it as many times. So that is not an actor subscription code. I'll talk about those later. That's just for casting notices. But please also tell your filmmaker and content creator friends about it.
And those casting notices, they're only for film or TV, but not for stage.
Well, no, you actually anticipated what I was going to say next. So you can cast any type of project with us. For theater, we typically see people building out open audition dates and times. So when you set your audition city, for example, New York, you'll set the city first, and then there'll be a drop-down menu where you can set more detailed live audition dates if you have a specific time for appointment auditions or an open call. So we do see theaters obviously using open calls more or equity principal auditions. We also, if you're a stage actor, we get all the equity notices on our site. But you can cast anything, and we've really diversified our offerings. We have web videos, viral videos, podcasts, radio, online commercials, everything you can think of. So that's good for you guys who are actors. And also for casting. So yeah, it's not just for narrative film. We get voiceover for documentaries, things like that. So yeah, please, if you have anything that you think needs to be cast, and then I just include an example of what it looks like when you do set up a specific address for a by appointment audition in this case, or an open call. So that's what it will look like, and in this case, this person has specified a lot of cities in Ohio and Michigan. So what I'll talk about later, as an actor, you'll set up the casting notices you want to hear about. So actors in those cities will get an email notification about this notice. So does that all make sense so far? Yeah.
Question about the closed versus open casting calls.
Yeah.
Like, is like open where like they don't have to send you anything beforehand.
Right.
Just kind of show up and that's
So
fine.
just from my casting experience personally, I prefer at least to make it by appointment, because then you have some idea of who's showing up, you know, some idea of how many people you'll be seeing that day. Of course, people could still decide to show up if they know the address. But it's really whatever works for you. I also just like the back and forth a little bit. It's more work initially, but if you're messaging an actor to say, here's our audition time, please confirm your attendance. Yeah, you'll get some flaky people and you won't always hear from them, but in general, that just helps you have some initial correspondence with them, you know what they're like.
Also, if you leave it open and so you're not hearing from anyone, you can't be certain. There's going to be people who've seen it, but you don't know that. So if you decide you need to change the day or something, you've no way to contact the people that may or may not have seen it.
Oh,
You know, so it's I mean, open calls are definitely they happen all the time with really established companies, and especially mostly in theater, because they're so well organized, they're not going to get randomly canceled. But if on a smaller scale, you kind of want to be mindful of that, because if you decide you need to change the day, and then some people show up at that location that you told them to show up and you're not there, then they come to us and say, this guy is not legitimate. There's, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe he's trying to lure me into this building for no reason. So it's just things. These are things that we see all the time. So they're good to know, because they may not necessarily be obvious to you the first time you do it until something happens. So by appointment, it's definitely easier for you just to schedule and to make sure everything is, just having communication with people is going to make everything easier.
And you don't have to be as specific as these people were. I mean, this is a student film, as you could guess, so they're using a student building. But if you don't have an audition studio in mind yet, just put the city, and then when you message actors later, you can tell them. So then I'll go into messaging a little bit later. Obviously, you can't always hold live auditions. Sometimes you're going to need to have them self-tape or Skype. In my experience, whatever I've been casting, I usually prefer to do Skype or Google Hangouts if I'm going to need to interview somebody remotely or at an odd time. But obviously, self-tapes are a thing. I mean, I'm sure we have professional actors here who use them a lot. I just find if you're working on something unpaid or lower budget, it's just kind of tough to incentivize getting them to send back the self-tape. So as a casting director, I typically recommend at least at my level, using Google Hangouts or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you find that often that people are using the Skype and the video chat? Sort of?
Yeah, I mean, I've used it for projects and it's worked very well, and I think it's getting more common. We're also looking, hopefully soon, into having audition videos totally integrated into our system, so you don't even have to go to an outside provider for that. But we don't have that yet, unfortunately. I also just see, I mean, I work with film students a lot, and I just see a lot of film students requiring self-tapes, and I just think having a couple pages of slides for student film, you're not gonna get a lot of submissions back. Nothing against student films, I think they're amazing, but I think it's, like I said, it's kind of tough to incentivize that and get actors to follow up.
Because it's not paid.
Yeah, but you know, it's also personal preference, what works best for you and your team. So I'm sure most of you have experience writing breakdowns, but I just find, having read a lot, I just find these are a few things that help. We get a lot that are too long and a lot that are very short, and I just find the happy medium is best. Something brief but that catches the actor's attention and shows them why they might want this role in the first place. We get incredibly specific ones. We had one today that said 6 foot and 201 pounds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were joking, like, what, if you're a pound more or a pound less, you can't have this role.
We need to show who step on the scale.
Yeah. So.
One thing I would maybe add to that is be completely honest with what you want. I used to work at a talent agency, and we had a really diverse roster, and it would drive me crazy when I would see a breakdown that would say something like, "Oh, we're open to all ethnicities, but they need to have blonde hair and gray eyes." I'm like, this is not all ethnicities that you're looking for. So don't waste people's time. Don't pretend that you're willing to see everyone when you're not. So just be honest. Like, if there's a reason that you need a particular type, make that clear. But be open. It used to just drive me crazy if it's just everyone and anyone and everyone comes in, but we're not really gonna book you. Yeah. So be mindful of that. Be mindful that these are people that are looking for work, and they just don't waste people's time. Is something I really think is really important. Just put as much information as you think people need, and make it relevant.
And by the same token, like you said, if something like ethnicity or height isn't vital to the role, let yourself be surprised. And that's one thing I love when I'm casting something. Mm-hmm. Calling people in who I might not have pictured for the role, and then they blow me away.
Yeah, especially maybe if for some reason you think that they need to have a certain height if it's not relevant to the plot line. Yeah, so we'll see that sometimes people will say like 6 foot or over. So then there's people who might be perfect for this but aren't that tall, just don't submit. When there's just no reason. So of course there are going to be circumstances when your character has particular physical attributes that you need, but if there's no real reason for them, just be open.
And then upfront about any controversial content, like nudity, like Katie said earlier, or anything you don't want an actor to be unpleasantly surprised about later on, any political allegory or something like that. Any simulated sex scene that maybe doesn't involve nudity but is risque, you want to talk about that. Then SAG-AFTRA, I mentioned earlier, you want to specify if you're using a SAG-AFTRA contract. I'm sure, I know this was advertised among SAG-AFTRA, so I'm sure most of you are quite knowledgeable about that. My understanding is with the student film and short film, you can also hire non-union as well, those agreements. And then I think new media, you have to have 10 SAG members on that, unless it's changed. But I would just read up on their website. We always recommend calling your local rep if you're unsure. And then follow the SAG guidelines. Be prepared to follow it as you shoot in terms of when to give them breaks and meals. I think they have you fill out a schedule for that. And also, I know a big one, I'm sure nobody here would do this, but a big one now is they officially issued a proclamation that you cannot have auditions in hotels to provide for the safety of the actors. So make sure you're abiding by what SAG says. And I think it's good practice, even if you're casting all non-union, to kind of abide by the SAG workday. And then submission requirements that aren't too stringent, like I said earlier, so you don't want to be requiring like 5 pages of self-tape for a student film, or really for anything. And I think it's good to kind of weed people out either through the reels, which I'll show you later, or through an initial self-tape, and then hopefully meet them in person if you can, so you can maybe have a talk and see if you're a good fit. Did you have a question?
Yeah, actually I'm not knowledgeable about SAG-AFTRA, like what is that?
So that's the union. It used to be two separate unions, Screen Actors Guild and American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, and then they merged, like 5 years ago. So that's the union that protects screen actors in the United States. So, especially in New York, when you have a lot of union actors, you're going to, at some point in your career, run into wanting to hire them, and so you'll want to be up on how the contracts work. So there is a student film agreement that's pretty easy to use, but you have to say, for example, if my film makes money, I will pay them deferred pay at this moment. You have to sign something like this. You have to get their SAG number and have them put that on the contract. But I always recommend looking at their website and calling them if you have any questions, because the rules can change and you want to make sure you're accurate and not breaking any rules. So I talked about communicating with actors and confirming with them. So now I'm going to actually go to what it looks like. So I said earlier, this is the casting demo. We had actors from all over the world. We said this is a demo for talks like this, and you can submit your headshot. So we have thousands of actors on here. And so this is what it looks like when people start to submit. So you'll have all their pictures here. On the left side, which I think is cut off by the aspect ratio, they'll show the names of the roles, and you'll filter by the roles, or you'll just have this unfiled folder where you have everybody. So this is where you start to message them and look through them. And this can be accessed by going to this odometer type logo for the casting dashboard in the upper right hand corner. So you can see that's how many submissions we had for the casting demo. So let's say I want to look at him. I'm going to click on him. I see his phone number there, and that's something I can't see till he submits. And I see all his photos here. They're really easy to see, but if I want, I can click on this. That will open up a different window. View full profile and credits. And then let's see if he has, so he has his resume here, and then he'll also have his PDF or his Word doc that he can upload, which I'll go through for the actors how to do that. There, and then I can check out his video reel. So I'll click that, that'll come up there. And so this is nice because I can do a little preliminary looking around and maybe weeding out and seeing who I like and who I don't like. Now, not everybody has a video reel, and if you don't require it, you might not have that great an idea, but it helps because it's all right here. It's also up here, and then Notepad. So this is where I can add notes if I have collaborators about what I think of the actors, and that's going to pop up when they first log in next to their casting dashboard, and the actors cannot see that. So let's say I like him. I'm going to contact him. I'll write a message here. Maybe I'll say, please submit a self-tape with this attached slides, or please confirm you can come to this audition. Then I'll attach the casting notice down there so he, if he's applying for a lot of stuff, he sees it, he remembers what I'm from. I can attach files here if I want to send him sides, and I'll send that off. And then let's say I want to message a bunch of people at one time and say, all of you, can you come to the audition? I'm gonna go select all, actions, send a message. It'll ask me if I'm okay.